Alright. What's up, everybody? This is Herschel from High School Top 200. Welcome back to another top 5 positions for High School Top 200. Yesterday we did the loose head props, and so we're going to go through some tight head props right now. This one is like kind of like the first one. It's kind of like the tight heads. I like the loose heads because it's, you know, there's so many guys that I kind of want to put in these lists, and it is honestly really hard just to drop it down to 5 players that you're comfortable with and 5 players that, you know, you think are sort of like the full kind of package that you want. And I think, and there's always, and it's always different too, because like a lot of players give you different things that you really like. Like they give you a lot of things that you like in a position, and a player that will fulfill that role. And so when it comes down to really trying to nail down 5, there's always like, I guess the 3, 4, and 5 can be a really hard spot, because there's a lot of guys that fulfill the things that you like in a player, and the guys that I guess there's guys that can give you a little bit more of something else, and you know they may lack on some other things. But this was kind of a really hard one for me in that way, and also the loose head props, because I'm a prop and I sort of know what I'm looking for in terms of like what I like. I kind of didn't put a system in mind. I just kind of went for what I thought was the best player for that position. So what I came up with is Siale Lauaki from St. Pat's College Town. He's the number 1. Number 2 is Gabe Robinson from Hamilton Boys High School. Number 3 is Mohonrai Ova'a from King's High School in Dunedin. Gus Brown from Napier Boys is my 4th one. And my 5th one is Whakaonga Lea Manu, like he from Auckland Grammar. He's the 5th one. And those and as I picked those 5, there was still a shuffling within those 3 as well, which one I thought was better, which one I thought offered a bit more in different parts of the game and things that I kind of liked. Siale Lauaki, obviously last year was New Zealand Secondary Schools. He was kind of a surprise to me when they picked him, and then it wasn't until I watched the game last year how good he was, how much things he did do, how many areas of the game he did really excel at. You know, he's one thing that he's not is that he's not the highest exceptional scrummager. He's a great scrummager now. He's a good scrummager now, but he's not the best scrummager now. But he has a really good frame that when he gets into club rugby and onto reps and all that kind of stuff, it's not going to take long for him to learn how to do it. And every boy going into club rugby has, especially at prop, has this transition of, oh, that's really how you prop. Like even the really good ones that are in First 15 rugby, once they reach men's and once they start really banging up against men and really putting that shoulder work in, a lot of them find out how, even when they dominated in high school, they find out in club rugby that how to really scrum, and then it kind of just moves on the higher you get up. And so a lot of boys in First 15 rugby right now get away with it with just brute strength. A lot of these, like the bigger boy props, they get away with just brute strength. Some of the smaller ones learn a lot of technique, really a lot of angles on engagement, a lot of good form from their feet and, to their hips, straight backs, bum poked out, shoulders back, all that kind of stuff that works, all the work that goes in just before engagement, that kind of stuff they work on a lot. Whereas you got these big boys who just kind of just bull rush you. And just a warning to you big boys who do just bull rush and just brutally destroy someone just off pure strength. Learn how, like, that stuff is great, but learn how to actually scrum now, so that once you get into club rugby, you can kind of figure that stuff out together, and then you can go put it all through. Siale is like that kind of kid. Was that right now he can scrum pretty good. I'm not saying he's the best, but he can scrum pretty good. But he's got a lot of brute strength and a lot of just real mongrel to him that he wins a lot of them like that. And so once he goes through all these rep trainings and stuff, and I think he would have learned a lot of it last year, coming into like the New Zealand camp as well, is that he would have got better and better. So there's not a problem, with that kind of stuff. With his scrumming here at first 15 level, and then the next, obviously next year he's going to get a lot better once he starts testing himself with senior club rugby and stuff like that. No doubt, I think he'll be playing senior club rugby next year for someone in Wellington or whoever he's signed to. I don't know where he's signed to, but wherever he's signed to. He is probably, out of him, Tony Toffa and Toby Taylor, I think he's the better runner out of all three of them. Because he's really explosive as well. He's really explosive kind of runner. And he's got a lot of speed to him as well, which is the difference. Because I think I've mentioned it before, where I've seen him break the line, but also beat off wingers and really beat fullbacks on an angle. And you can see that from loose forwards and stuff like they can sometimes give you that speed, but from a prop, it's kind of like Alex Fido, where he was that fast. Even like Nella, I don't think Nella was as fast as what Siale is right now, but kind of that speed through breaking through the line and then even beating guys on angles who are supposed to be faster than you. That's what he kind of gives, and he's got a lot of mongrel as well with that tight game, which is also like what is so impressive about him too, is that even though he does play that real loose game where he does line up a lot out of first five and outside on the outside shoulder between first five and second five, and he really does hit the line when he hits the line, and he's just so strong that he just gets he just gets through so many tackles, so many shoulder tackles and stuff. Even guys putting their full strength that I've seen him try to hit him, he's always going forward. That's what I kind of like. That's what I like about Siale, and the reason why I had him as my top prop this year was for those kind of reasons. Second one, Gabe Robinson from Hamilton Boys, to me is probably the best scrummager in the country in terms of just like technique wise. It's the reason why him and Moses Magoon were so good together in the scrum time, is that through Sean Ruff they set a really good scrum. They set a good height. They were really steady. They were really straight. Everyone was the same height when you look across their bums, and seeing that flat, that flat board going across the whole back three. All of them went down, and then even that engagement as well, there was just no movement at all when those two got in there. And so it was really cool seeing Gabe really work scrums when he came up against bigger props. And because Gabe's not like a big, huge kind of fellow, not at all. And at Hamilton Boys, there's a really big traditions of props that make New Zealand secondary schools. There's a bunch of them that have made New Zealand secondary schools, and Gabe to me is one of the better ones that has made it through, because just through his size, his shape, his technique at scrums, even his lifting and stuff like that, he just blows everyone out of the water, and he's not a big fella at all. I'll be interested to see what happens to him next year, and see where he goes or how he goes. Because if he gets bigger as well, not if he gets bigger, it's like when he gets bigger, starts widening out and just getting this real when he gets his man body into it kind of thing. We're going to see a whole different kind of player with him. And so he's my number 2 pick for the tight heads. Mohonrai Alva'a, who was captain this year for King's High School. He's another really good runner as a prop too, and there were a lot of times when he let off, in the pods as either a crash ball guy or playmaker. To me, they were always getting somewhere. And the reason was because not just his running style or his power, how big he is as well, but he was like he's a really smart player. He's a really smart player in terms of knowing when to give or hold the ball, when to go down, when to offload, who to draw in. Things like that is what I really liked about him. Even though there are two of those props, just like, you know, in my top 5 for both of them, I've got 2 Hamilton Boys guys and I've got two guys from King's High School. And so, you know, when you talk about props, sometimes I think that you kind of share that duty of who's doing what. But for me, Mahonri was the one, to me, that was a real big distributor and a real big playmaker, and even just a pure leader in that way for that team, and the way that they've been for the past 2 years now, because, you know, he's been playing for 2 years now, and he's been playing since he was year 10. He's been playing in the first 15, and just how good he's been, even after the big massive injury that he had, I think in year 11, in year 11. You know, he came back and he was just, you know, he just kept going. He was just so strong, such a dynamic player as well. And even him with his scrums is getting better too. So I really like that about him. My fourth one is the first year 12 in my top 5, and that's Gus Brown. And I've talked about Gus Brown a few times before because he's a prop. He's a prop that is their best line-out jumper, which is such a strange thing. You know, props on first 15 can come skinny. There are guys there are props that you can lift because they don't actually really kind of look like props at all. But if you see Gus Brown is 100% a prop. You look at him, you're just like, holy crap, he's a huge kid. And he's year 12. And so, like, when you say that, you know, he's your main jumper as a tight head prop, it's not like something you hear all the time in rugby at all. Not at any level. You know, so, like, for him to be their main jumper as a tight head prop is such a strange thing, but he gets it done. You know, I think that's probably, and like he does lift a lot, but I mean, when you're the main jumper on offense and defense, it's like you're not lifting a lot of people. I know he's strong though. That's not really like a thing. But the other thing that I'm thinking about is his strength. That's not it at all. But his on-field work is really impressive. Run game is really good. Not the biggest dynamic break off of a bunch of yards, but he'll make you 5-6 yards at a time, which is always like a really good thing. Once you want to start building like little bits of momentum, he'll be one of those kind of guys that I go to. And because they got guys like Gala Malasia as well, and also Max Ratcliffe and Nick Eno, and even like what's his name, Jared Martin's a really good runner as well. Is that if you got guys like Gus Brown to get that ball rolling, he's a great guy to have at that position, and that. And have him within your system and strategy to get those kind of things rolling. And then he'll always be a guy that you'd want to go to, be like, yeah, I know he's going to give me that 100%. You know, so he's the guy that I look for. Even this year, I think he'll get a shot this year. If they still have a New Zealand Barbarians and New Zealand secondary schools, I think he'll get a shot. I think he'll get a look in as well. But next year, he's going to be one of those prime kind of guys that... that will be one of the leaders next year in terms of props. You know, him and obviously I talked about Conrad Newlands yesterday with Whanganui Collegiate, and even Sika Uamaki was the other one as well, from St. Peter's. You know, guys like that. Those are the kind of guys that you want to sort of look out for, kind of thing, and that you want to just keep an eye out for, because they're going to be big time next year as well, and I'll probably be talking about them a lot too. My fifth one is Whakaonga, Lea Manu. Like Lea Manu is from Auckland Grammar, and Onga is one of I saw when he was under 15s, and he was just this big, huge kid that was so fast and powerful and just really raw in the way that he played. Obviously, because he was so young, he just relied and leaned on the fact that he was just a really good runner, and he was stronger than pretty much everybody else on the field. He was, way more explosive than everybody else and kind of bullied everyone around. And then I saw him at year 12, year 11 and year 12, and he just muscled up, and he really got a lot of work in the gym and did really good on his weights and being able to, keep himself at a level that he could play at, and it made a huge difference in what he brought to the field too. Just how fit he was and how strong he was, and obviously when you got a guy like that who works really hard, he can really put himself in a position where he can give you a lot more game time, and you can really focus plays and focus structure around a player who's like that. And so Whakaonga was kind of that kid that really turned it on for Grandma, and they could sort of look at him, rely on him too. He had even last year with the under 18 Blues, as a year 12 student, he really, I think he really stood up and really did show that he belonged in that position where some of the best players in the country, the best players in the country in the under 18 Blues against the under 18 Chiefs, that he was just right there, and he belonged in that position and belonged in that pack. And so that was really cool to see from Onga and just what he could do. Some of the other guys that I really thought about, obviously Anthony Bolton was one, and even with his injuries and him being out, was a guy that I kind of thought would be up there. Diesel Lee Jackman from St. Peter's School, Cambridge, was another guy I liked a lot. Nathaniel Howarth was from Gisborne Boys High School, who's been in there ever since he was year 10, and he's actually a young year 13 this year, which means that he actually made the Gisborne Boys High School first team when he was actually the age of a year 9, and that's how much. That's how much. I guess potential and talent this guy has, and what they saw in him from the beginning was just from such a young age of just how good he was. And he just, I don't know how he feels going on the field, but he must not get nervous anymore with just play. Like how many times he's played this level, and how many times he's seen all these big teams. It must just be normal to him. And he's actually a young year 13 this year, so I don't know if he's coming back, but he's just one of those top guys as well that I thought about. Jack Jones is the other one too, from Christ College, who is also a young year 13, and he could also return if he wanted to. But he's one of those guys too that's just a really huge producer of work on the field. He's just a huge guy that can really run the ball well too. Great offloader. He's really good at the offloads, and he's not shy of getting himself in around the rucks, putting in that work, and making sure that he's a part of everything, and that he can even give, he can make as much effect as he can on the game with where he is on the field as well. St. Thomas has Richie Tupuaile, I think his name is. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And Richie I saw last year as year 11. I didn't know he was year 11. I thought he was year 12. And year 12 or year 13. And he was playing number 8, and he switched into prop. And he was just, he was just such a good player, such a... and I think because of the way that I was watching him in the eyes of a year 12, year 13, because I wasn't too sure who he was, but because he was so big, I just automatically thought, oh, he must have been in the seconds, or something like that, or I don't know, playing under 16s or something. And so when I was watching him, I was like, man, this kid's he's a bit different. And then when I found out at the beginning of this year that he was actually just a year 12, that he was a year 12 this year and not like a year 13 or anything. I was like, jeepers, this kid is, such a good, talented kid. And because of his league background, obviously he's got a really good running style to him, and he knows how to get rid of players and hit the line at pace, all that kind of stuff. And so he's one of those guys that I'm looking forward to next year. The other one that I was looking at too was Bede Fisher from Timaru Boys High, and he's year 12 too. And so, if you look at all the props coming back with Conrad Newlands from Whanganui Collegiate, then, we've got Gus Brown, Richie, Tupu Aile, Bede Fisher, and then if Jack Jones comes back or Nathaniel Howarth comes back too, that already just in those names there is just that's a lot of players to be returning that of just like really high class kind of talent even right now. And that's not even talking about the year 11s that will turn year 12 next year. We've got guys like that too, who you kind of have to watch out for as well, because that summer holidays, pretty much from December to March, a lot of these boys and a lot of the ones that really put in a lot of work, they just come back extra beast, man. They just come back extra beast, highly fit, highly explosive, highly strong, just so much strength, so much power, really good work ethic is what I've noticed about a lot of kids now, is that a lot of them do get in the gym, a lot of them know how to lift properly, not lift the heaviest. Like some kids, like back in the days, even when I was like at high school and stuff, we just thought just because you could lift really heavy that, you were lifting great. It was not really, not at all. A lot of boys come in here with a lot of good technique, and that's obviously put down to a lot of the coaches and who coaches bring in their friends that, are expert in these areas, and they teach the boys how to actually do it properly so they don't hurt themselves, or they don't re-injure stuff that, that they're trying to heal from and things like that. And so seeing all these props coming back, having guys like that, because like even Cialia is like a guy that I saw coming when I saw him come back and saw him on film first. I thought, flip, I'm so glad he put in a lot of work in the off season as well. Gus Brown went from a blindside lock to a front rower just within a year, from year 11 into year 12, and things are changing. And so those are my top 5 for the tie heads. If you want to like and subscribe, and if you want to put down a comment, tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm right or whatever. But, that's me. Herschel Frauen High School Top 200. Peace.